Chapter 23. 5 from the Peleta Knight Order, 5 from the cavalry, and 1 Kishir to lead them. The Peleta Knight Order seemed to have gathered their own elites, and discipline was maintained, but their strength did not seem outstanding. Of course, this was in comparison to the members of the cavalry. It seems they have chosen people based on experience than raw power. Even if the Peleta Knight Order was somewhat weak, it didn't matter. The strength of the remaining personnel was enough to ward off any ordinary threat. With this group, there won't be a need for Kishi to draw his sword, even if something happens. In the past, a similar number of troops must have been deployed, and the combat power of the cavalry members selected then would not have been low. Yet, why did Kishir need to draw the divine sword? What was the minor incident that occurred back then? Would the same problem arise this time? It was still an unknown, but Yudhir decided to prioritize the safety of Kishir and the Redstone above all else. If either of those were damaged, it could lead to significant issues in the future. He had another goal: to change the fate of the Redstone, which was to be sent to the Pearl Tower after being retrieved. This time, Yudhir planned to prevent the Redstone from reaching the Pearl Tower. First, focus on the retrieval, then confront Kishir. While Yudhir didn't particularly like Kishir, at least the man was someone he could communicate with. Before Yudhir's death, no one had understood or listened to his words, but he wanted to believe that Kishir would be different. Even if he didn't disclose everything, if he could convince Kishir that the purification happening at the Pearl Tower was not the true purification, couldn't he prevent the same future? If even Kishir can't understand my words, perhaps it would be best to secretly investigate. If he couldn't prevent the purification, he would at least need to understand the original form and properties of the stone. If necessary, he was prepared to steal it. They mounted their horses under the guidance of the Pearl Tower mages. At first glance, the horses looked like mere clumps of wind, raising doubts about how they would be ridden, but touching the misty wind horse revealed a tangible sensation, unseen yet felt by the hand. Judging that sensation correctly, they could sit atop the kneeling horse. Be careful not to let go of the reins. Even if you feel like you are about to fall, you'll be fine as long as you hold onto the reins. This feels so strange. Me too. It feels like I'm sitting on a squishy, invisible slime. Hin and Finn, the siblings, scrunched up their faces as they pressed down on their seats. The body of the invisible horse sank and rose under their palms. What would happen if we used our abilities on this horse? It's quite disrespectful to consider using our powers on a horse said to be worth more than a car full of gold. At that point, Kishir, riding the largest horse, spoke from behind. His voice held a hint of amusement, but it was enough to startle the siblings. "Commander, did you hear us? We weren't really going to do that." Curiosity is a virtue. To answer your question, if a force beyond its limit is applied, the misty wind horse will be destroyed and scattered. The words sounded like a joke, but they were delivered in a voice that felt strangely genuine. Elder siblings who had been looking at each other hesitated for a moment before speaking up. "Have you tried it? Did you see it happen?" "Of course. I think I was 11 at that time. My father, the previous emperor, had to pay for those horse because I had angered the tower master. As for me, I received the punishment of copying scripture 100 times. Everyone fell silent at the nonchalantly uttered title. Despite the casual attitude, they were reminded afresh that the person before them was of imperial blood, a descendant of the sun god, who had been a prince until a few years ago. And Yudir was slightly surprised for a different reason. A story from his childhood. Come to think of it, I have never asked or heard about it. Yudir was one of the people who had spent the most time with Kishir before his death. Whether willingly or unwillingly, he had to meet him, but he suddenly remembered that they had never shared a conversation like this before. Even then, he thought it was rather bleak relationship. It was so bleak that even he himself did not expect Kishir's face to remain in his heart for such a long time. Among those who among those departing will lead the way? The mages of the pole tower, having confirmed that everyone had mounted their horses, asked who will lead the way. These misty wind horses have been trained to follow the path of the one holding a specific magic stone. Normally, we mages who are accustomed to using the horses don't need this. But as many of you are riding for the first time, we prepared it. We will give this stone to the one leading the way. The magic stone they produced was a black stone the size of the finger. The knight from Paleta Duchy, holding up his hand, approached with his horse after they raised the stone, fashioned into a bracelet to prevent easy dropping. I accept. I will guide from the front throughout. Good. Take this and remember not to remove it while you are riding. The Paleta knight received the bracelet from the wizard, tried it on, and examined it a few times, assessing its comfort. Nodding, seemingly satisfied, he caught the attention of Nathan, who had been watching everything from a distance. Nathan approached the horse Kishir was on. Return safely, Duke. When you say it with such a stern face, it feels like I won't be able to return safely. Nathan's face was expressionless. While there was no sign of laughter, Kishir laughed with joy, his red eyes twinkling. Yudir watched as Kishir, still holding the reins, leaned over to pat his adjutant's shoulder. I know you will do well with the tasks given until I return. Yes. What does he know? Either mind was grazed by a fleeting question just as Kishir straightened up and turned his head. His gaze swept over the 10 people riding the misty wind horses, pausing on Yudir's face. Let's depart then. Yes. 2 Paleta knights took up the lead as guides, with Kishir and the cavalry in the middle. The rear were once again secured by 3 Paleta knights. In fact, if we go by the power they held, it should be the knights who need protection. Yudir felt a peculiar irony as he pulled at the reins. He gave a short whistle, and the misty wind horse road started to sway slowly before moving. Since the west exit of the Imperial Knights camp led directly outside the city walls without any checks, the party headed in that direction, then set a proper course towards the south. Golden light cast long shadow over the plain as 11 misty wind horses galloped freely. The journey to the Ariak Mountains to retrieve the redstone had begun. The misty wind horses could run more than 3 times faster than a living horse, but they were less taxing on the body due to their unique feel even after a long ride. The cavalry, who had been riding the misty wind horses for the first time, were all surprised by this fact, and during a break for dinner, they shared their thoughts. It's really strange. I have been riding a horse, but why doesn't my butt hurt? My back doesn't hurt either. As the elder siblings marveled while patting their backs, Gakane joined in their conversation. That's because these horses are primarily used by mages. Mages are known for their weak physical strength and discomfort with transportation. So, when creating the Misty Wind horses, they were modified with the aim of compensating for these disadvantages as much as possible. How did you find that out? I asked the Pearl Tower mage who came to help when I first rode the horse. Actually, I have always wanted to ride this horse. Hearing that, Yudhir recalled the mages who had only avoided him when he was riding the horse instead of helping him. In that short time, Gakane had managed to have a detailed conversation with the mage from the Pearl Tower. Known for their reclusive nature, if it was true, it was an it wasn't an ordinary conversation. Perhaps Gakane's talent lay in conversation, and Yudhir thought it was a shame that such a person would disappear easily due to an accident in a few months. I must save that guy after all. Excuse me, your meals are ready. Far away, the Peleta knights, who had skillfully cooked with a portable stove, waved at the cavalry. Unlike the soldiers who bought little besides their clothes, the Peleta knights had 2 bags each, filled with supplies, hanging on each side of their horses. It turned out all of this was necessary for living and eating. The knights skillfully started a fire in the field and hung a pot of an improvised pot hanger made from broken branches to make soup, all without the help of the cavalry. As they continually took out seasonings, dried meat, and dehydrated bread from their bags, Yudhir was repeatedly impressed by their survival skills. The Duke said he would go to the nearby stream for a while, but he hasn't returned yet. Could one of you go fetch him?